Welcome to NBA Jam!
Yes, welcome to NBA Jam, specifically NBA Jam Tournament Edition, one of my favourite games from back in the day. I am Andrew of the NLSC, finally doing something with our YouTube channel apart from uploading preview videos and intros, actually doing some original content. Just want to give you a bit of a retrospective on one of my favourite arcade basketball games, NBA Jam Tournament Edition. Now, NBA Jam is, of course, an old favourite from a lot of older basketball gamers from way back in the day, and a lot of people think of the original NBA Jam, which, of course, is a fantastic game, but I was always partial to Tournament Edition myself. This is actually the PC version, recorded on DOSBox. You can fire up DOSBox if you've still got a copy of the game and play it, which is a lot of fun to look back on. And you can see I'm off to a decent start here, but that will change very soon because those old Jam games had the classic rubber band AI, and quite difficult sometimes to actually compete with the CPU when it decided to not play fair. And this is actually the final game of tournament mode. You go through all 27 teams at the time and have to beat every single team, of course, and that actually unlocks expanded rosters with some of the players that aren't available at the beginning of the game. And after you beat all the teams, you get to play any team again, selected randomly, with the secret players showing up, either the mascots or some of the developers and the other secret characters. Will Smith is in this one as well as the Fresh Prince, which is and also you can access him with a code. Larry Bird's in the game. A lot of few legends, etc. And there I am getting screwed over by the CPU again with the block shot. The PC version is pretty much the same as the Super Nintendo and other versions, the arcade version, of course. One of the key differences between the PC and Super Nintendo version is it doesn't actually have the practice mode of the Super Nintendo version, and it's actually a little bit glitchy, the PC version. You'll see that as the footage continues, some strange things with the physics as it is, clipping, I should say. Quite often you'll see. Well, first of all, I'm playing with the keyboard rather than my gamepad. For some reason, my DOSBox doesn't particularly like my gamepad, even though I've tried to calibrate it many times. So I just usually play with my keyboard in DOS games and through DOSBox, and the controls aren't quite as precise as the keyboard, or at least I haven't played with the keyboard for many years for these games, so a bit rusty. Nevertheless, one of the reasons you'll see why I'm clipping through people. Part of it is that the collision detection is not fantastic in the PC version of NBA Jam TE, but also it's a bit hard with the perspective, and with the keyboard I'm kind of stopping short when I'm trying to shove. But and I'm rusty and making excuses for the fact that I'm not completely dominating the CPU. Now, something you might have just seen there is I actually substituted a player, brought in Tony Kukoc off the bench, and one of the reasons that I really like Tournament Edition more than the original version of NBA Jam is the injury level, and I'm actually a bit disappointed that EA didn't bring that back. Of course, EA now has the NBA Jam license, and they made the reboot in 2010 and also on Fire Edition in 2011. But they didn't bring back the injury level of players, which added a new dimension to the game, because every time you get knocked down, depending on your player's strength rating, you can sustain an injury level, which makes your player perform a little bit worse, makes them run a bit slower even with turbo. So there's actually an incentive to substitute, and you'll actually see the CPU substitute, because they have a reason to as well, and unfortunately in the latest Jam games that's not, they don't have an injury level, so there's no actual need for them to substitute.
Hurry! Unconscious!
Now there's actually some really good music, or 90s sports game music I should say, included in this game. It's on the CD-ROM. This is a CD-ROM game from back in the day, and it's one of those games where the first track on the CD-ROM is actually the data, and all the other tracks you can actually pop it into a CD player or any optical media player these days and listen to the tracks beyond track 1, which again is the data. Everything else is the audio tracks. And when I originally recorded this, I've been sitting on this footage since 2012 actually, thinking that I would do something with it at some point, and here I am. When I recorded it, I hadn't set it up properly, so it didn't record the CD audio when I recorded the DOSBox footage. So that's why you're not hearing any music at the moment. But there is a pretty good soundtrack for the time. It's delightfully 90s sports game cheese. So.
Rejected! He's heating up!
It's one of those classic NBA Jam dunks there. I actually had a whole list of the dunks back in the day, a spreadsheet with I'd put together with all the ratings that you could, and all the different dunks you could do. If I ever find it, I'll put it in the wiki, but I think it might be on a disc somewhere that's gone, long gone. Floppy disk. Oh, here we go. Full motion video. So this was a huge thing back in the day of CD-ROM games. Finally, we're making the transition from floppy disk games to many more games on CD-ROM back in the mid-90s. And you actually see, it's a thrill to see this little tiny full motion video, these little clips of an NBA game in the middle of the quarter. And there was only a few of them for each of the 27 teams. So you get tired of them pretty quick. You could turn them off in the menu, but yeah, that was lost its appeal after a while. Somersault dunks, always fun to see the somersault dunks get broken out.
From downtown! Yes!
So as I said, this is this NBA Jam Tournament Edition, of course, and if you played On Fire Edition, the most recent EA release, you'll know about the Real AI, which was originally developed for Fight Night, and basically allows the CPU to learn your style of play and counter your style of play and your tactics with better strategy. Basically, in these more primitive basketball games, the way the CPU would work, especially in an arcade title like NBA Jam, there comes to a certain point, and you certainly see it as the game enters the fourth quarter. Basically, the CPU just essentially cheats the rubber band AI, as I said, which was one of the things I really liked about On Fire Edition, actually, that was finally addressed and made the gameplay a little less repetitive.
Harper!
Also, as I said, this is the PC version. Way back in the day, tried my hand at some very primitive modding, tried to put Michael Jordan in the game, overriding Ron Harper, and that pretty much amounted to me trying to rename Ron Harper's player data file to Jordan. And surprisingly, it didn't do anything. Even more surprisingly, it didn't actually crash the game.
Rejected! Hurry! Hello!
So as we enter the fourth quarter here, you might also notice that some interesting uniforms for the Rockets there. And I'm not sure whether we'll see the logo shortly, but Tournament Edition was... there is the logo, and you can see that's the updated logo for the 96 season, 95-96 season. Man, 20 years ago. But this was an interesting update, the Tournament Edition, and there was several editions, as I said, for both the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, Mega Drive, arcades, and between versions there were updates to the rosters, so by the end of it, Tournament Edition's a game that kind of spanned about 2 or 3 seasons as far as the rosters are concerned, and even in this game, the Unlockable All-Stars team is a collection of the 1994 All-Stars. The rosters are kind of end of 1995, off-season 95-96, and then the logos are kind of updated for the 96 season, and some of the jerseys aren't. So the jersey colorings, of course, not a lot of detail on them. So it's kind of weird how it spanned a few different seasons, and as you can see, things are getting very sloppy at the moment.
Launches a 3!
When all else fails, just fire a 3 and hope for the best, and it's not working out right now.
From downtown! Pippen! Slams it!
thought that was going to get blocked. I mentioned the collisions and the collision detection in the PC version. As I said, it feels a bit glitchy compared to the Super Nintendo. It feels a lot easier to block shots in the Super Nintendo version actually compared to PC. Except for the PC, as you just saw then. They're quite adept at it. I think some of it's the perspective. It's a little bit... feels a bit different on the port. It's not a terrible port, but it is kind of... there we go, I'm blocked again.
Pippin! Slams it!
But I really do like the Jam Tournament Edition for those editions. The injury, which I really... if they do make another Jam game at some point, EA, or even if they make another Street, that's an element that I'd really like to see. Now we're coming down to the last 18 seconds or so here. Ron Harper with the possible game-winning shot there.
Knocked to the floor!
And I dodged the bullet, and with that victory actually unlocked the expanded rosters. And at some point, I'd probably like to go through the expanded rosters because there's another full motion video, some highlights of the Bulls from the 94, 95 era. So as I said, I'd like to go through the rosters because there's some really interesting ratings. I think Dino Raja is an 8 or 9 in three-pointers, and he didn't make a lot of them. In fact, if he made any during his NBA career. Same with Juwan Howard has got really high three-point ratings. So there's some that are definitely strange, especially as most of the ratings are based on a real performance with an arcade twist, of course. But that's pretty much how every game went with NBA Jam Tournament Edition. It was a lot of fun back in the day, just like the original NBA Jam. But there were those added wrinkles with the injured levels, with the updated rosters, and of course a PC version which I really liked. It also came with a screensaver, which I've never been able to install properly. I think it came with a code that I've lost. I lost the code, I think, when I first opened the box. So I've never been able to install this lights out screensaver with NBA team logos from the 94-95 season. But it's an interesting game because of the way it's evolved over a few iterations, from the arcade through the home console releases and the PC. And again, the PC version is a bit of an awkward port at times, but I had a lot of fun with it. My cousin and I used to play it a lot back in the day. Would you alternate between this and NBA Live 95 or NBA Live 96 on one platform or another? But I hope you enjoyed this look back at NBA Jam Tournament Edition. Looking to do more of these videos for the channel in the coming weeks and months, so stay tuned. Of course, check us out on nba-live.com or on facebook.com/the NLSC, on Twitter @the NLSC. So check us out for more NBA Live, NBA 2K, and NBA Jam content, and we'll see you next time.